My sister had planned to take a trip to Los Angeles to visit our older brother and his wife. It was during my spring break, so I decided to tag along with her. When we arrived at my brother's house, it was about 3:30 in the afternoon. My sister-in-law greeted us and invited us inside. My sister-in-law had told us months earlier that her 12-year-old niece that was able to see spirits saw a little girl about around her age in the hallway. My sister and I didn't believe in ghosts and such at that time, so we decided to go visit them anyways. Time flew by really quick and it was time to hit the hay. I woke up in the middle of the night to use the restroom. When I was about to go back to bed, I saw a girl's figure in the hallway. She was just standing there. At first I thought it was my sister that was waiting for me to get out of the restroom. But when I walked towards her, she suddenly ran through me. It scared the living life out of me. When I snapped out of it, I ran as fast as I could back to the room. I jumped in bed and put the covers over my head. My sister woke up minutes later and asked me why I was shivering uncontrollably. I told her that I had seen the ghost of the little girl with my very own eyes. The very next day we packed our stuff and drove back home. I could still picture the little girl in my head when I closed my eyes. It's been almost a year now that I haven't visited my brother and his wife. My mom and I were working one day in the store we own, when her cell phone rang. The caller ID said, "Home," with our number below it. She looked at me calmly and asked, "Who's at home?" My dad was at work. My sister was at college. My grandma, who used to live with my parents, had passed away about 6 months prior. But then I remembered, we didn't have a home phone, because after my grandma passed, my mom shut off the landline since we all had cell phones. When we called the number back, it had been disconnected. A few years ago, my girlfriend and I inexplicably awoke in a panic in the middle of the night. We looked at each other, and at that moment, the large framed photo hanging on the wall crashed to the ground. I told her I'd been having a horrible nightmare where she was being stabbed to death. She freaked out, saying she was having the exact same dream, except I was being stabbed. Later on, we both heard my mom yelling downstairs. She sounded scared and kept calling my name. This was particularly scary because we lived in California, and my mom lived in England. Nobody was inside the house but us. After that, my girlfriend refused to sleep at my house ever again. When I was a kid, my family moved into an apartment where a murder had been committed prior to us living there. Every night, my big sister would make me shut our bedroom window. And when I'd look outside, I'd see 3 faces staring back at me. They had no hair, noses, or mouths. They'd just stare, but never did anything. Well, a few months back, my family was talking about that apartment, and I mentioned the faces. My sister turned to me, shocked. She said that she saw them too, and that's why she always asked me to close the window. This was my first and as yet only experience with the paranormal. Throughout my life I have revisited this incident, wondering if perhaps it was simply a child's fancy, a leap of imagination. Yet no matter the years that pass, I always fall back to the nagging feeling that it was real, that it really did happen. I was 5 years old, or around that age. Surrounded by my toys, I played in the living room alone as I often did. On this day I remember it was raining and gray and I was playing with my game of toy fishing instead of the garden, which was my usual haunt. It was a simple toy which included a circular dish which would be filled with plastic fish, and tiny fishing rods with magnets attached to the end. The aim was simply catch a fish with the magnet on the rod. It was meant for 2 people or more, but often I played it by myself. As I caught more and more fish, I placed them on the carpet beside me, stacking them neatly as I angled for the last few remaining fish. This was when I saw it. A hand. A human hand which darted from behind the sofa and snatched up one of my plastic fish from my pile. It happened so quickly that it took me a while to react. Yet as quick as it had happened, I knew what I had seen, as I also knew that I was completely alone in that room. It took my mother entering the room before I drew up the courage to follow my fish. But as I peered around the back of the sofa, I knew it would not be there. And it wasn't. It had gone, and after searching and searching I never found it again. Even though I always kept an eye out for that small plastic fish. I never told my mother. I have never told anyone this incident. I'm not sure why, as I often thought of it over the years.